over 1,700 metres to the top.
Well, this town, in fact, was really struck by devastation in 1967 when 80% of the town was destroyed by an earthquake which registered 7 on the Richter scale.
It was absolutely in the epicentre, wasn't it?
It was right on the middle there, and they've had to rebuild that. The local church was destroyed, and in fact indicated the time of the seismic event, which was 11:10 in the evening. The shockwaves were felt as far away as Po and Tab. It's at a point like this, Phil, when you're looking at 22 kilometres to go, you know it's pretty much all uphill to the finish when you start to say to yourself, I wonder what I did this for.
Yeah, these boys know with a lead of 4:13 and only 22 kilometres to go on a normal day, they win the day, but not today.
There's some fabulous art on the way up towards the finish as well. There's some great decorations being done by Arret as they welcome the Tour de France into this region. A region this climb is not very often visited. The race has actually been down here before. It was way back in 2007. Yes, 2007 they went down this climb, and the winner over the top, by the way, on that occasion was Maurizio Soler, who won the King of the Mountains that year, and then sadly a couple of years after that had a very, very nasty crash in the Tour of Switzerland, which actually ended his career.
Yeah, that was really sad. A great climb for Colombia. He rode for a British licensed team, but in fact it was all formed in South Africa. 4 minutes 7 seconds at the moment as we continue on very good roads. They've actually resurfaced the climb too, so that will be the legacy of the Tour de France visiting the finished climb here today, because they've got a lovely road for the future.
Yeah, it's a good point you raised there, Phil, because very often the difficulty of the Pyrenees is because of the very rough pavement that the riders normally go over. But as we actually get to the start of the climb proper, it is a very good, smooth tarmac surface. On the left-hand side, the lime green there, Cannondale Garmin looking after Talansky. Also moving up a little bit to the front, we've got the riders here coming forward from IAM Cycling. The gap's really starting to plunge a bit for these guys.
Feeling pretty stiff actually. Quite a few riders are. They won't be too happy today with the climb. As always, there's an elimination time based on the winner's time of the day, but they should be all okay today. Just looking down there. Everybody tempo riding. Some of the riders complaining about this. They're calling it the Tour de France a drag race, particularly the riders from Holland, because they say the big teams block the road at the front, and all we do is pedal fast, and we can't attack from the back. We can't get out the back.
Well, these teams have adopted this position. You're right, it's been very much like that. We talked about the Fantastic Four, but we've got to include the American TJ Van Gardner now, who's riding, I think, an exceptionally good Tour de France. He's feeling confident, and I spoke to his team manager, one of the team managers this morning, Alan Piper, who said he didn't expect too much from TJ Van Gardner over the next couple of days. He's going to start to really analyse his options once we get into the Alps. There's Chris Froome in the yellow jersey, always got his teammates up alongside him. There's Peter Kenyuk in the red, white and blue, British national champion, second year in a row from the Isle of Man.
The FDJ boys are still near the front. They put a couple of riders into Buller earlier on. Now, they've taken advice from Thibaut Pinot. He's had bronchitis. He's number 21 if you catch a glimpse there. He's just on the right. He said his bronchitis is easing, and his hurt or injured knee hasn't been quite so painful, so I think he's indicated to the team, don't be surprised, Paul, if we see him put on attacking when this climb starts.
And then the interesting thing will be, Phil, to see how the other overall contenders actually respond to that attack, because he has so much time now. They don't
8+ minutes. Yeah.
They don't need to respond to his attack, so he might be allowed a little bit of freedom, which he wouldn't have had if he'd been as close as a couple of minutes down overall. So, of course, obviously inspired by the fact that, as they say in French, it's le 14 juillet, the 14th of July, Bastille Day. It's a big day for the French.
Who was the last Frenchman to win on Juillet 14, Paul?
I'll have a guess that it was David Moncoutier back in Digne-les-Bains in 2005.
Good reading my notes, I hate that. They're 3:17 now, 17.9 kilometres to go for the leaders. They've just gone under 20 kilometres, so 3:17 represents 2.2 kilometres on the road. It will represent a lot more very soon as we start to climb. And officially we should see the sign saying the King of the Mountains at 15.3, so just over 2 kilometres to the official start of the climb. The race for the polka dot jersey and the yellow jersey. Both could change by the winner today, you never know.
Well, Daniel, for the autobus here in this part of the stage, just the question for him is to survive.
There we go, they've just passed the 15.3 kilometres to go. We've seen already a number of riders dropped, including Mark Cavendish, but now we want to see who's going to launch the first attack.
Yes, it's all a question now of putting the cards onto the table, as we just noticed one or two riders, Ian Stannard, slipping backwards as he goes past 15.3 kilometres to go, but the pressure is really being applied at the front as we haven't yet got to the steepest part of this climb, and already chunks of riders are being left behind.
This is the thing, Paul, and this is what people were saying. If they hit this race at full speed, and they've done just that, it could cause more damage than the Col de Tourmalet today, because it's right to the finishing line now, and there's so few seconds amongst the leaders. They're going to test each other here for sure.
Yeah, Daniel Tekla-Heimerlot in that white jersey with the red polka dots, the leader of the King of the Mountains at the start of the day. Well, he's being left behind. As too is Andre Greipel. We're looking ahead. The big sprinter who today, Phil, will climb onto the podium as the new leader in the points competition.
So now the pressure is going on. It is Movistar. Remember, Chris Froome started the day in yellow, 12 seconds ahead of Van Garderen, 1:03 ahead of Contador, just on 2 minutes for Quintana, and 2:22 to last year's winner, Nibali. Those are the time gaps after nearly 10 days of racing. Now watching, and this is the end of Van Bilsen. He was the last rider, the only rider to catch up with the leader, and he sent him back again.
Well, Federico has felt that his compatriot in the breakaway here struggling a fraction. Van Bilsen will very quickly get picked up by the main field. As we said earlier, Phil, Peric Federico here is a very experienced rider. He's won 4 stages of the Tour de France, but I don't think he's going to resist this, because the big guns are ready to fire their first salvo.
Peter Sagan, he's lost that green jersey. He'll probably lose white as well now, because he's dropping off the competition here, and the next logical man in white would be Nairo Quintana. Look at this now, rider after rider just dropping off the back. Rowan Dennis going there, the winner of the first day of this race in Utrecht.
You know, it's pretty horrible when you're in a situation like this, Phil. I just noticed rider Heyerdahl slipping backwards there. That's a bit of a surprise for Cannondale Garmin, but when you hit the climb like this, and you know you've got to come out and do it again tomorrow and the next day, it's not all that good for the morale when you're a non-climber, and this is a bit of a surprise too, because this is Rui Costa.
Champion of Portugal, Jens Voigt, they've hit this hill so fast. The riders have just gone off the back, one after another.
Well, I guess there's a large part of the peloton. They know they cannot win today, but they got another 11 days to go after tonight. So if you can't win, if your job is done on the flat, there's no reason to suffer and go fast up that climb. They calculate the time limit, and they just go as fast as they need to stay within the time limit and save as much energy as they can for the next hard days to come. But of course, the guys in front, they're gonna battle it out. They have the lead-out men to help them into the climb, and you can see the pace is really fast in the peloton.
The thing is, Jensi, you can see a Movistar really laying it on the line. Now, my gut feeling is if Quintana wants to put himself back into contention, he's got to go quite a long way from the finish, probably on the 10% gradient part, which comes up at about 5 or 6 kilometers to go.
And don't forget, he has Alejandro Valverde, like a multiple Tour de France stage winner, as like helper. Imagine the situation. In any other team, Alejandro Valverde would be the total leader. And here, he's just the domestique for Quintana. So they're in a really good, strong position here. And I hope we're going to see some really good action soon.
Well, we've seen some really good riders drop away
now.
while you've been talking, Jens. The world champion's gone, Kwiatkowski. The champion of Norway, Edvard Bosenhagen, he's been dropped. He's been riding well. We get back to the front of the race, some serious faces here, and it's Movistar driving the pace, with Sky just watching, and I suggest waiting.
Yeah, well, that's what they've got to do. When I spoke to Sean Yates this morning, the team manager of Alberto Contador, he said to me, Team Sky don't have anything to do today. They don't have to prove anything. But Alberto Contador needs to go out and get himself a little bit of time. But they expected the big attacks today would come from Team Movistar.
As they continue now, riders going off one by one. This is Anthony Delaplas of Britannia team.
Although that might be a good idea to just do this one race.
Really big peloton left though.
And do an easy cool down.
Through the debris to get back
and then
onto
leave
the
that for
tail
the
of this
evening
peloton
and do
with
little
our
bit
camera.
climbs.
Well, just looking here, this is the race referee. They're just trying to make sure that the cameras and the photographers get out of the way. This is the rider who was in the breakaway, Van Bilsen in the red. He's been caught. You know, just looking there, the fourth place rider in the white jersey, don't get caught out by the way, because Nairo Quintana is in second place in the best young rider competition, and he wears the white jersey. He will be thinking of doing some serious damage on this climb later on.
Just looking at the tail here, we've lost some big names in the Tour de France already, like the world champion Kwiatkowski. As we look here, the riders dropping off, and all the pressure at the front is by Team Movistar, but Sky are right up behind them, watching and waiting.
Bit of a shock here to see the young Dutchman Wilco Kelderman going backwards as well. Just looking here, and it was interesting to hear what Jens Voigt had to say. But when you think about Movistar, how hard these guys are working, they have so much confidence in their climber, Nairo Quintana. But I wonder how Nairo Quintana must feel to have a guy with the reputation of Alejandro Valverde working for him, pacing him at this stage.
And who seems to have come to this race with a great pair of legs, having just won the Championship of Spain. Only one rider left. Moments ago we did see Kenneth Van Bilsen passed by the peloton, and this is trouble here, Paul, because this is Romain Bardet, number 12, and he's slipping it back now with Peter Kenyuk just ahead. Kenyuk was riding very strongly at the front, but it looks as though somebody just knocked on the door.
Well, let's not forget Bardet had a little nasty crash in the early week of this race, and he's been put under pressure. It's always strange, Phil. I've always said this: when you come out of the starting blocks the day after the rest day, the body reacts sometimes in a very strange way. And I think that's exactly what's happening here to Romain Bardet. He'll have to count on one leader now. That, of course, will be Jean-Christophe Perrault, who should be well ensconced with the front end of the peloton.
By the end of this day, could be the only Frenchman in any form of contention, second overall last year. And now I'm just seeing it also in the lime green. Yes, here's Andrew Talansky, also been dropped here, though his team got to the front early. I thought he might have been feeling good, but this is an incessant pace being forced out by Movistar. Dan Martin as well.
Well, that's a bit of a shock, because we noticed Cannondale Garmin came to the front. They were on the right-hand side. They were setting quite an infernal pace to stay at the front end of the main field. And for me, Phil, their two big chances, well, they popped.
Yeah, I can't understand that, quite honestly, because they seem to have got the plan in order, but it wasn't to work at all. This is the leader, Federico, 4 times a stage winner. He's in his favourite area. He's won 3 times in the area of the Pyrenees, not on top of hills though, and he's now trying to do that today. But at 25 seconds, he's going to see only a few riders reaching him, I must say.
Well, Phil, the only way he could have won the stage on a day like this was if there'd been a little bit of surrendering in the main field behind, but everybody realises how important today is. Thomas Voeckler is also in difficulty, number 129, and in the past he's enjoyed his ride through the Pyrenees, but certainly not on day 1 of 3.
He also looked pretty useful at the start of the climb. He came right to the sharp end of the peloton. I thought, watch out for little Tommy Voeckler today, but he has also cracked under the pressure. Now, what do you think, Jens, about the tactics of Movistar here? They seem to be playing the cards exactly as they planned.
They definitely do play their cards, but I just noticed it's a little less than 12 kilometers, like 7 miles. And they have one rider left to ride tempo, and then it's up to the 2 leaders already. It's up to Quintana and Valverde. Now, so how long can one rider pull that tempo, ride that hard tempo?
Oh, Jensi, Thibaut Pinot, 21, he's been left behind as well, and that's why FDJ were doing all of their pacemaking before now. This is an indication of how tough today is, and I'm just wondering now if that may not be the right move by Movistar, because we're talking about Valverde. Yeah, he's a great character, but what this done has seen Movistar as well get reduced in numbers, while there's a lot of riders still there from Team Sky. Maybe they've gone too hard on the first day.
Well, the fabulous five, as we're calling them, are still in this very compact group here. TJ Van Garderen, Chris Froome, Quintana, the three principal riders, and Nibali is still there as well. They're all still in this group, and Contador, of course. Now, there's got to be an acceleration at some point, but they're watching everybody. And Christophe, where is he?
This is Perrault.
Perrault, yeah. Where's he? He's coming out. There's no Frenchman left.
Well, Phil, this is a question, this is really boom, boom, and out go the lights for the French hosts in the Tour de France this year, because this is the man who finished in second place overall last year. We've seen Thibaut Pinot, who finished third last year. They've disappeared from the nucleus of the top men in the Tour de France on the first climb of the Pyrenees.
Well, the fireworks on Bastille Day are supposed to come at midnight, but it looks like they've come in the afternoon in the Tour de France for the French here. They're all losing contact. This is Robert Hessing, who's trying to take advantage of the tactics here. Hessing is accelerating. Now that might cause a reaction eventually from the field. Hessing overall is over 2:52 behind in 15th place. He's looking to improve now.
Well, he's got a chance, Phil, because of that loss of time, almost 3 minutes down in the overall standings. They don't need to respond to his attack immediately. We're now down to just a few riders left from Movistar, and there in the white jersey, Nairo Quintana. His face does not show any expression at all. He is one of the greatest climbers in the world. Robert Hessing has taken the advantage of having lost some time to say, right, I'm going to fly the flag for Holland today. It might be red, white and blue, but it's not the flag that France was expecting to see fly in the Pyrenees.
Well, this is the thing, Paul, with Hessing. As I don't know if we missed him, just saw him go past, but they caught poor old Federico there. Hessing was first past him. He's gone straight through the group. But this is Robert Hessing here, and this is the sort of move that could be rather interesting, because they're not going to react yet to him.
Sorry, there was Federico just going through the shot there very, very quickly, Phil. When you go backwards on a stage like this, you go backwards very, very quickly. We will talk about him. He's not one of the anonymous riders in the Tour de France this year, but no, goodbye, thank you, merci beaucoup, vive la France.
We'll have the red number on tomorrow as the day's most aggressive rider, so he hasn't gone empty-handed here. Geraint Thomas sitting up behind Quintana in that white jersey, remember. It's not his at the start of the day, it's owned by Peter Sagan, but it might well be his tonight. Janse van Rensburg, the champion of South Africa there, just dropping off the back of this group here. He's had a good ride.
Well, if you look at the number of riders who are left in that group, that's pretty impressive. That was Matthias Frank as well, number 181.
Now, a little bit of a push on here. Now, if they start doing this, Movistar might start to lift the pace here. They're 12 seconds behind Robert Hessing at the moment. He was finished 5th overall in the Amgen Tour of California this year and stayed on.
Nibali's suffering. Nibali's going.
Nibali's cracked. Nibali has gone. This is the back of the race here. Last year's winner is in trouble. Now, if they start to hear this, remember that Chris Froome, when he came up the Mur de Bretagne, didn't realise they had Nibali in trouble, but he will now. So as Nibali cracks, so too does Thibaut Pinot.
Phil, my sleeper for the day, Rigoberto Urán, is also in difficulty on this slope to this very, very difficult climb.
Well, this relentless tempo by Team Movistar, with Sky just following. They haven't played any cards yet. Waiting to see. Now this is interesting. Vincenzo Nibali here up against the best climbers. He's not coming out best.
Malcolm Mollema as well in the black and white jersey of Trek Factory Racing. Some big names are slipping away from the yellow jersey group. Right now, I have to say, Phil, that Chris Froome looks to be in a very, very good situation. He's still got Nicolas Roach up alongside him, but this man, this is a guy who's had so many ups and downs throughout the whole of his career. He had a nasty accident a couple of years ago when he broke his leg, had to fight back into the sport. His father passed away, and it was a very difficult moment for him to get himself back into the sport. And then at the start of, well, last year he had that problem with his heart, and now he is at the front in the Tour de France.
21 seconds against 21 riders in this chase group here. There's still some surprising names, including the youngest rider in the race is still here at the moment, for MTN Quebec. At 10 kilometres to go, it looks like Hessing has 23 seconds.
Well, it just goes to show how quickly things can turn around. Nibali now, Phil, all he could do is stay up alongside his teammates. Now it's Geraint Thomas on the front. Richie Port. Valverde's making a move here, Phil.
Valverde, a strong man, he's run in this area before and he's accelerating. Now that's going to put them all on the defensive. As I also see the Argentinian rider in there, Eduardo Sepulveda, and he's never ridden the Tour before, and he's in this select group.
Well, when we talked to his team at Bretagne, Sèche-Boudimont, before the start of the Tour de France, they had high hopes for this rider. He's in the black and green jersey, and he's hoping to get himself inside, first of all, the top 15, and maybe even the top 10. But the move by Alejandro Valverde, Phil, this puts a lot of pressure onto Team Sky, and that's the advantage that Movistar have.
Well, that was a brutal acceleration, but they're beginning to claw the way back. Rafael Valls is on the right. He's been passed back into this group. It's up to the incredible bike rider, Geraint Thomas, the Commonwealth Games road race champion, to repair the damage again. Van Garderen is number 61. 121 here is Pierre Roland, who seems to have found himself again here.
Well, you have to wonder about Geraint Thomas, Phil. If he dedicated himself to just riding grand stage races like this one, how good a professional bike rider he would be. Valverde is attacking here, I think, to put a little bit of pressure onto the shoulders of Team Sky to try and isolate them, to try and isolate Chris Froome, because by Valverde attacking, it's forcing Geraint Thomas and then Richie Port to chase down after him. Then all of a sudden, towards the end of this race, it'll end up being Froome against Quintana.
Now there's the face of Valverde, and a little shy look there from Geraint Thomas, say, hey man, don't do that again, we're back. And he's brought Froome back into the thick of it. The man on Froome with the yellow jersey's back wheel is TJ Van Garderen. Behind him is Nairo Quintana. We're expecting him to attack. And what about the Adams twins here at the back of the race, because this is Adam Yates.
When you start playing about the phone,
Adam Yates
you lose concentration.
As that's a great piece of climbing by Yates.
It's a brilliant piece of climbing by the youngster there, Phil, who sits on the back here. He's probably looking up here and saying, wow, look at all these guys I am with. All he's got to realise, though, Phil, that he's in a super position to maybe attack a little bit later on if he's got himself great legs, because they will not respond to an attack by Adam Yates a little bit later on. But look at all these numbers. We're looking at all the 51s.
Not much.
Now Quintana stalking the shoulder there of TJ Van Garderen. Valverde's doing an incredible job of loosening up this breakaway, just in favour of Quintana. Terrific bike riding. I think he's come to this tour on great form.
He has, but I don't think he's doing this for himself. I think Valverde is doing this to put pressure onto Sky. He says, come on boys, you want to win the race? He is attacking. He keeps forcing them to chase him down. 12. So is Adam Yates.
Adam Yates also gone as we go up to 6.8 kilometres left to ride. This has become the creme de la creme. There's one or two surprises in there.
Oh, Contador,
what's he doing? He's lost the wheel there, and he's beginning to lose ground rapidly. Now, if Alberto Contador, this is realised, he's really struggling to hang on here. We just lost Adam Yates. Now Contador is losing ground.
So too has Valverde got. Now it's down to Richie Port. Looks over his shoulder. He's trying to do the damage now. Locked on the wheel of Chris Froome is Nairo Quintana, and just hanging in there is TJ Van Garderen.
Yes, and Valverde now has done his bit. He's gone. Pierre Roland has gone. The French Hope has gone as well. 6.6 kilometres, and it's Richie Port, the wingman, driving again for Froome.
Yeah, Phil, can I just remind you, 6.5 kilometres left to go. There's still 20 minutes of climbing before these guys get themselves up towards the finish line. Richie Port now has got the form that helped Bradley Wiggins win the Tour de France, that helped Chris Froome win the Tour de France in the past. Now it's down to just 3 men. Froome, look at that amazing pedalling cadence. He can spin those pedal around so very, very quickly. Speeds approaching 100 revolutions a minute, but sitting locked into his wheel there is the man in the white jersey from Boyacá in Colombia, Nairo Quintana. Looks now as if it's a little bit of a change reversal. There is Hessing, he's alongside. Oh, and this is Froome.
Well, Froome has accelerated, but the little man from Colombia has realised it. Can he chase him down? Chris Froome is really putting the hammer down here now to test everybody in the Tour. And it looks as though only Quintana for the moment is remotely going to control Froome.
Well, Phil, we've seen this so many times from Team Sky before, attack on the first big mountain stage, and that's exactly what Chris Froome wants to do now. He's not comfortable with the gaps he's got already. He wants to put the hammer down and get as big a gap over everybody on day one in the mountains. I keep looking around the side of the camera screen there, Phil, to see if I can spot Quintana. Here he is.
It's a long gap already. The Basque flags are on the corners. He shoots around. It's steepened up there. Froome looks over his shoulder to see where he is. He's only going to see one man in a white jersey.
But don't forget what Chris Froome did the first time he came up against Nairo Quintana 2 years ago. He overestimated his own ability, and Quintana came back again.
I'll tell you what, that's a big move by Chris Froome, and the acceleration out using low gears. And in fact, Richie Porte had to move out the way. He'd had enough, but he's being chased now, and if anything, he might be nailing him back a little bit.
Well, Quintana is a fabulous climber, the winner last year of the Giro d'Italia.
This is Van Garderen here. So Van Garderen is dropped now. There's two prominent dominating men in the Tour de France. This one's beaten. How long though? Contador, I suspected all week he wasn't happy. He might be tired of his victory in the Tour of Italy.
Well, Phil, it's so very difficult at this level of the sport nowadays to be able to ride the Tour of Italy to win and then come back and try and win the Tour de France to win. That's why Chris Froome did not ride the Tour of Italy this year. He's concentrated specifically on being ready for the month of July.
Concentrating, puffing, blowing, living here.
Now, if I stay in front of what I'll be right now,
looking at his power,
well, it's a bit steeper at the ground.
Getting on with his own job. He's not racing anybody, he's racing himself.
Well, Quintana here still looks pretty concentrated. You just saw him
I give him a chance to get through to me.
He wanted cold
Where
water
it's a bit
poured over
showerless,
himself, just to wake himself up a little bit. The heat sometimes
and I'll get more
puts you a little
benefits.
bit to sleep, and so that cold water on the back of the neck is a bit of a shock.
Well, the gaps are terrible now, Paul. 2:32 from the yellow to Nibali, 1:11 to Contador, and only Van Garderen almost heading out to him. And only Quintana has control of Chris Froome.
Well, for Vincenzo Nibali in second position there with the Italian flag around his waist,
What's
it's
a
a
burning
question
right
of
now?
survival. He's got some good company as well, Rigoberto Urán. But you see, TJ Van Garderen, Phil, he keeps recovering. He hasn't got the change in speed like a climber as Robert Hessing, but once he gets his diesel engine going, he can crawl his way back. But this man is amazing.
Watch the crowds, they spot the yellow jersey climbing up here, the man of the great Tour winners, winning the big stages that count. Looking for 5 kilometers to go, and by tonight, Chris Froome will be over a minute ahead of the second man on the race. After today, big time. 3 kilometers to go. This is the next group on the road with Geraint Thomas in it, Pierre Rolland at the back, Valverde.
Well, Alejandro Valverde, he won't give TJ Van Garderen any assistance at all. For Pierre Rolland, well, it's a question of he tried this afternoon.
2 kilometers to go for Chris Froome now. It gets a little bit easier, and then he'll kick again. You'll see what he's heading to very shortly. Every pedal rev is gaining time. Is he putting enough on the table to say he can win the Tour de France now? It's still a week and a half from Paris.
Okay, then it's high Tour, out the saddle.
This popular Colombian, they're trying to drive him on here. The waters part.
Finally, a little bit of respite from the noise of Nairo Quintana, but no respite from the effort. He's still got to keep racing. He's still got to keep the pressure on to try and limit his losses as he comes over the final kilometre or so.
Well, everybody individually has feared Froome. Now we know why. He's dictating the Tour de France to them today, but you know, the Tour is a strange animal, and bodies change over the next week and a half in the mountains. It's a very mountainous Tour from now on. Great today, maybe not so great tomorrow. Quintana's rather hoping that might be the case.
Well, Richie Porte is still recovering according to Rick's radio. It's very difficult once you get into the mountains and the race is split up so dramatically to find out where everybody is. But who would ever have thought that a kid that grew up in Nairobi, in Kikuyu, and started riding about with a bike with David Kinja would be dominating the Tour de France quite like this in the Pyrenees?
Well, here is Richie Porte here as he fights for another high position for himself in the Tour de France now. He's got Quintana in his gun sights, and he's got time to make this a Sky 1-2 at the summit of the first big challenge of this year's Tour. Closing in, Richie Porte, the Tasmanian rider. There's the 1 kilometre kite, and Chris Froome goes under it with a comfortable lead.
And still, Phil, it's the same cadence, the high pedalling cadence that Chris Froome has developed over the last few years. People have wondered about it. It's a very strange pedalling style, maybe not the most beautiful style in the world when it comes to the aficionados who like to see a smooth pedalling action, but I tell you what, it's extremely efficient for Chris Froome.
And what about Porte here? He's being drawn to Quintana like a magnet. He's just going to try and nip him on the line. Meanwhile, Chris Froome still in all sorts of pain. Pain that he wants to feel because he knows with every pedal rev he adds another second to his overall lead in the Tour de France. He's looking for his 5th ever stage win, of course. He's won the Tour as well. And it looks to me as though Geraint Thomas is chasing anything from this next group.
Yes, that acceleration was Pierre Rolland. The fact of the matter is that this group had slowed down a fraction because Tony Gallopin had recovered.
Well, our camera force shortens the length, but I don't know how far we'd say that was, but he's very close, a kilometre to go, to catching up with Quintana. Froome, meanwhile, is ready to salute the crowd here. He's won on La Planche de Belfis in Axter, Trois-Domaines, Mont Ventoux. He won the Time Trial at Shorts in the past. It's another mountaintop victory for this incredible bike rider. And now, who is to beat him in this year's Tour de France? Must be an incredible feeling at 500 metres. And the crowd barried safely back to a place where we've never been before. And look at this too. Quintana was supposed to win today for his team. He might not finish second.
Well, I wonder whether or not Richie Porte, number 35 there, signed his contract, because I think he'd be increasing his value with a ride like this today.
Well, it could be an incredible demonstration by Team Sky here. As he comes around the corner, 300 metres to go, Chris Froome, the winner of the Tour de France in 2013. He celebrates a 4th day in the Maillot Jaune. He also wore it early on for a day. And now he dances all the way to the summit of the La Pierre Saint-Martin. And when we see the time gaps later on, we're going to ask ourselves, is there anybody now can beat him in this year's Tour de France? 100 metres to go. Froome has conquered, literally, the sky's the limit now for him as he comes up this climb of Saint-Martin. It's Tour's first ever visit, and it's won by the leader of the Tour de France in yellow. And boy, it's going to be a big lead tonight. No longer will it be just 12 seconds. Now, is Richie Porte going to jump Nairo Quintana?
Well,
Can he jump Nairo?
Well, the question is if he wants to jump him or not, but maybe for a psychological blow to Nairo Quintana, who everybody was expecting to be the winner at the top of this climb here today. Well, Nairo Quintana now, number 51, has been put on the back.
Here he goes.
Richie Porte goes.
Here he goes. There's a 6-second bonus for second, a 4-second for third. They're not going to give him anything, the Sky team. They've even taken a 2-second bonus off him there. As Richie Porte will be delighted with this. Now, Richie has said he is leaving Team Sky at the end of the year. He won't say to whom, but it's to Team BMC, the USA squad, because he wants to win for himself. Well, today, he's finishing second to his team leader, Chris Froome.
Well, funnily enough there, Phil, as this man crosses the line in second position, he will be in second position at the end of the day in the King of the Mountains competition, so he will more than likely be the wearer of that tomorrow, because Froome has certainly got yellow.
The white jersey, yes, it could now stay for sure on the shoulders of Quintana. As Robert Gessing has survived a great day for him. It really has. He took the race to them. It didn't quite work out, but he's hung on well here.
Well, he certainly has a great performance by Robert Gessing, and look at how much effort he's putting in just to getting up to the line. He's going to climb up in the standings at the end of today.
You'll see this as a brilliant day in the Tour de France. Scenic. That's the fourth man over the line. Now here comes the group of Valverde, who tried to soften up the Sky Boys, didn't quite work out in the distance. It's TJ Van Garderen. It looks as though Yates is going to have a dig here.
Yeah, but look at Valverde there, and Geraint Thomas just sitting on the wheel of Alejandro Valverde. Valverde is the man who tried to set all of this up in the early part of the day.
Well, this is for fifth place, and I don't think Geraint Thomas even tried to beat Valverde there, just tapped him on the back and said, well done. Sky have had an unbelievable day because I think they'll be in the lead in the team race now.
Brilliant day, just looking round the corner. This is an impressive ride too. There's this Tony Galopin coming up to the line. I'm impressed by this young man as well, aware of the yellow jersey. And there is TJ Van Garderen, a little bit further back with the yellow helmet, who started the day in second place overall.
TJ Van Garderen is home. He's been in a real battle today, but he'll live to fight another day. And Contador, he's lost time. He did not expect to lose. Big question mark now on Alberto Contador.
Yeah, those legs look like they're buckling a fraction. He's really trying everything just to limit his losses, but when he looks at the clock at the end of today, he's going to see 2 minutes and 50 seconds lost. That is a huge chunk of time for Alberto Contador. And another man who's going to have lost a huge chunk of time at the end of the day, of course, is going to be Vincenzo Nibali. But Nibali has still got to get up here to the line. Rafael Valls comes in there just ahead of Jakob Fuglsang. Oh, this is a nice little move here as well. Because that's a good finish there coming. Well, that was Warren Barguil in second position. And here is the man that everybody thought would be one of the big favourites this year. Well, at the end of the day, I think he's going to have to really think about what is going to happen, because a little bit down the road there's still a long way to get to the finish for Vincenzo Nibali.
Well, I'll tell you what, when they look at all the time gaps and changes on the classification today, it's going to be a very different classification. And this is only the first day in the mountains, and the only real hill was this climb up to the finish. Here comes Vincenzo Nibali, and he's conceded over 4 minutes today when he gets to the finishing line. It's still a little bit of a ride, so it's been a total disaster. Lawrence Tendam is with him at the back as well. 2 more days in the high Pyrenees, my goodness me. Tomorrow we finish at Cotteret, having crossed the Col d'Aspin. In 2 days' time, he finishes the Plateau de Baille. Let's have a look at the result first. Froome at 59 seconds, Quintana 64, Hessing in 4th place, Valverde 5th. Geraint Thomas did well to hold on to 6th place. Adam Yates crosses the line in 7th. Pierre Rolland did a good ride for him today. He's on his way back in 8th. Galopin, the only man to stop Vincenzo Nibali, leading all the way after his lead in Sheffield last year. He's come home in 9th. There's the face of Chris Froome as he comes over the line. It's pain, yes, but it's the good feeling of pain, because he knows he's made so much time over everybody in the Tour de France.
It's not even a question of the victory this afternoon, Phil. It is a question of the time. His teammate Richie Porte, well, he won't be a threat because Richie Porte's lost a huge amount of time. But I think from a morale point of view, that will be a great move there for Richie Porte.
Well, we've not been to this finish line before. We've been in the region here, but we've never come to the finish line at La Pierre-Saint-Martin. And what a climb it turned out to be, because the riders hit it so hard, and that played right into the hands of Chris Froome. They started it, he finished it.
Well, there was a little Swahili sign just about 2 or 3 kilometers to go, and that just reminds me, as we look there at Chris Froome, of another Swahili expression which says Imara como Simba, as strong as a lion.
Look at this, Paul, the overall standings. Van Garderen is still second, but at 2 minutes 52, not 12 seconds. Quintana is in 3rd place now, and he will keep the white jersey. Valverde is in 4th place. Thomas is up to 5th. Contador is in 6th place. He actually drops 1 place.
Yeah, there's some massive time gaps at the end of today's stage, and we've still got 2 more Pyrenean stages to go. There is rider Hazedal, former winner of the Giro d'Italia, coming up for Cannondale-Garmin, and there is Romain Bardet, the second place rider from AG2R. He hasn't had a great day.
Welcome to stage 11 of the Tour de France. This is Matthew Keenan with you. After Chris Froome stamped his authority on the race yesterday, today we'll find out a lot about the result of the other pre-race favourites. The green jersey, it is a tight tussle between Andre Greipel, who currently leads by 3 points ahead of Peter Sagan. The race for the King of the Mountains classification, the stage win, has given Froome the lead. He's 11 points clear of his teammate Richie Porte. The white jersey for the best young rider, that is with Nairo Quintana. Stage 11 started in Po, finishing in Côte d'Arey, 188 kilometres, and it is a significant day of climbing. There are 6 categorised climbs, including the Col de Tourmalet, one of the most famous climbs in the race, being scaled today for the 80th time in the history of the Tour. Perfect conditions for the spectators in Po earlier this afternoon as the race rolled out with the neutral zone just before midday. For some 20 minutes before the flag came in, and then the racing has really been on. Matthew Ladanu from the FDJ squad, one of the local riders in the peloton. Across the first hour of racing, they covered 48.1 kilometres. It was an extraordinary start to the race, and there was some significant attempts at breakaways.
Or how many people
and in amongst them,
miss out.
We saw a number of riders from the Cannondale-Garmin squad, including Dan Martin, trying to get into the thick of the action. But at the first major rendezvous of the day, the intermediate sprint, it was Matteo Trentin who took the course ahead of Peter Sagan. So Peter Sagan picking up 17 points at that intermediate sprint. He now moves back into the lead of the race for the green jersey, and he moves to 14 points clear of Andre Greipel. This is the situation of the day, a breakaway group now of 7 with an advantage of 4 minutes and 7 seconds. Serge Piles is the rider who was in the break for NTN Quebec. A nice result for the Belgian, who finished strongly yesterday, taking 14th position on the stage. 2 riders in the move for FDJ, the sprinter, although he's proven to be more than that, Arnaud Demarque, along with Steve Moravito. And Moravito is the best placed overall in that breakaway group. And he is still a long way down at 26 minutes and 37 seconds. Astana looking to save the day somewhat. This is Andrei Grivko, the Ukrainian, who's just slipping off the front end of the main peloton, which under the control of Team Sky and the teammates of Chris Froome, who yesterday put in one of the best performances they've ever delivered in their time in cycling. 3 riders inside the top 6.
And so we lost them.
Froome the winner, Porte in 2nd position, Geraint Thomas in 6th place. That Martin that you see at 3 minutes and 25 seconds, it's not Tony Martin, it is Dan Martin, the Irishman from the Cannondale-Garmin squad, another team that was disappointed with how things unfolded yesterday. Dan Martin, he had a 4th place finish on the stage at the top of the Mur de Puy, a 2nd place finish on the stage at the top of the Mur de Bretagne. He was hoping for a lot more yesterday, but he conceded a significant chunk of time and has slipped to more than 21 minutes behind the yellow jersey. It was an extremely busy start to the day. There's already been 3 climbs that have been crested. The first one, it was Thomas Vogler, who won the King of the Mountains classification in 2012, who led over the top ahead of Dan Martin. So the Irishman very active. The second climb, Steve Moravito, who's now in the breakaway for the FDJ team. He led over the second climb. We're looking here at his teammate, Arnaud Demarque, in this breakaway group of 7 riders off the front, with a good advantage of 4.5 minutes. Then the third climb of the day, it was Daniel Teklehamanov who collected the points, and that was a category 3 climb.
About 50 metres ahead.
Steve Moravito, number 27 from FDJ. One team with 2 riders in the front group.
few moments ago, there was quite a bit of pacemaking being done by Team Sky. I think Sky just today would like to have a slightly easier ride because Chris Froome himself admitted this morning legs were a little bit sore, and that's not surprising after the amazing dominant performance he put in yesterday. And nice chance there to see Richie Porte. Lots of congratulations coming alongside for Richie Porte. Porte was second on the stage yesterday, and he's wearing, or should I say borrowing, the lead in the King of the Mountains competition from his own teammate, and that of course is Chris Froome. But it's the first time ever that Richie Porte has worn the King of the Mountains jersey at the Tour de France. It was a very rapid start to the day as well, because after 5 kilometres, a 4-man breakaway got cleared, and interestingly enough in that breakaway, an Astana rider, Louis Vestre. That's what we've done so far in the race as we start here the Col d'Aspin. And just sitting on the back there is Thomas Voeckler, team Europcar. No stranger at all to breakaways like this. And this is the sort of day when you could lay down the foundations of a victory in the King of the Mountains competition. And Voeckler went over the previous climb, a 4 category, in second place. But he knows that if this breakaway can survive over the Col d'Aspin and the Col de Tourmalet, he could be looking down the barrel of a lead in the King of the Mountains competition, a competition which in the past he has... 2 riders from FDJ. Steve Morabito is the rider from Switzerland who used to be a rider of Team BMC Racing, and he's sitting in that group. He wears number 27.
Looking at the long slopes here, the Col d'Aspin is a first category climb. Now it's not a late breaker, but it the Tourmalet, as it so often is in this part of the Tour de France. We'll come up to the base of the Col de Tourmalet after the descent of the Col d'Aspin. Now, can Dan Martin catch them up and win the day?
There's some riders still up ahead.
Well, this is a lovely part of the Col d'Aspin, shaded by these trees. We don't often see trees on a major mountain like this at this height, but here they are. This is Serge Powell's on the front for MTN Quebec at the moment. Arnaud Demar is in second place, and Demar, of course, is the sort of rider we expect to see in the sprints, not climbing up a mountain.
But I'm not sure if you noticed Serge Powell's at the front there as well, Phil. He actually has won a King of the Mountains competition in the past, and that was in the Santos Tour down under. So there's a couple of riders here who are going to be very inspired by trying to win the point at the top of this mountain. But we're going to have to hope that Dan Martin doesn't come back, because Dan Martin looks like a man on a mission here this afternoon.
Yes, the Tour Down Under, of course, in Australia, and the mountains, they wouldn't count as mountains in this part of the world, that is for sure.
Yes,
just a little hill, but hard and hot.
I would just like to add, Phil, that yesterday Serge Powell's been 14th on the stage when some of the big names of the sports had disappeared. Guys like
so if you're
Nibali, they cracked. So
absolutely on your limit,
could be the man for the match.
He is, and again he's another example of the enthusiasm of the MTN Quebec team here. As we get back to the peloton in charge, here comes Martin to keep the breakaway, a group of 7 replacing the Frenchman Arnaud Demar, and this has been the chase of the Tour for me. Tremendous crossing of the gap, and it's coming exactly where he wanted to reach them before the top of the Aspin.
Just on the pedaling style, Phil, you can see the energy that he's got. He's riding at a reasonably good
10 seconds,
this is keeping his gears nice and close, nodding his head a little bit for those that not the nodding movements of somebody suffering fatigue, somebody just trying to keep the pace nice and high. He has bridged since he started this climb more than 3 minutes, and that is a very, very impressive
10-15
number.
minutes.
Well done. We wonder why Cannondale were working at the front this morning and not getting anybody in the breakaway, but they set it all up and they took the chance. Dan Martin has climbed up this mountain at just under 11 miles an hour. That's what he's doing right now as he comes up behind the breakaway of 6.
Well, I think they'll be quite shocked to have seen how quickly he rode across that gap, because these riders will have all been given the information in their radios from the team management, and they will have known that the main field right now sits in excess of 7 minutes behind them. They will have known that Dan Martin was trying to ride across the gap, and I'm sure we'll see some rather strange expressions on the faces of these riders once he comes up. But he doesn't, in my opinion, Phil, he doesn't need to ride past them. He needs to keep with them for a little while, because they've got to go over the top of this climb, the Col d'Aspin, down into the valley and start the next climb, the giant of the Pyrenees, the Tourmalet. So, great job of work there done by Dan Martin. A brilliant manoeuvre. He jumped away from the main field as they went along the valley road down into Arrow, because he didn't want the confusion of starting the Col d'Aspin. Here he is. He's made the junction. It's another 7 riders back to the front, because we've lost 1 rider from that original 7-man leading group, and that was the sprinter from FDJ, Arnaud Dumas.
No movement yet from the leaders, as the crowd must have come up here pretty early to get this position on the Col d'Aspin. And cars must be parked just on the summit. We'll see the banner very shortly now as we come around this twisting bend here. Move has started. And it's Dan Martin going to try and ride them off. The last man to join them on the climb, bridging a gap of over 3.5 minutes.
I'm not sure how
and, they've opened up the gap. The other two let them get on with it in the back here, Molavito and Buckman. Anybody going to challenge? Buckler has gone after Dan Martin. He's checking out who's left. But I'm thinking he's got too strong a pair of legs today, Dan Martin. We might be seeing him realise part of his ambition today. He's going to go for the King of the Mountains. 10 points on the line for Martin on this first category climb.
8 points for second place for Buckler. Then coming up in third place, Serge Powell's. He'll get himself 6 points, but obviously that is in the back of Dan Martin's mind here this afternoon. The next climb on the day, Phil, that will bring a lot more points. 25 points if this breakaway succeeds, and I expect it to succeed over the slopes, of course, of the Col de Tourmalet.
Now he's still got more points on the top of the Tourmalet. If he can win that one, he gets another 25, and that will give him 37 and put him in third place in the King of the Mountains. So he can't catch it today, Paul's or Froome, but he has closed in, and that might be his thoughts for the day.
Yeah, you can see just a look.
Oops, abandon of Johan van Sommeren. He has struggled with injury.
Well, that's just a bit of a shock, really, because Johan van Sommeren is a big integral part of AG2R La Mondiale. It just goes to show how many riders have nursed themselves through these first few days of the Tour de France, the worst week and a half of the Tour de France. We had seen Johan van Sommeren struggling at the back end of the pack on a number of occasions. That's unfortunately for the main field, as you look across the valley there, is where they have to go to, while the leading group of riders now are quite comfortably on the descent.
Pretty fast and reasonably short descent here. We're hitting 61 kilometres an hour, just under 40 miles an hour at the moment. As they continue the drop down, everybody likes to see their own way down the mountain. This is a pretty good descent. One of the descenders would really like to come down. There's not too many traps on this descent as they're down the Aspin.
No, it's a pretty technical descent though, and as you can see, you're just taking a few risks going around the corners. It was Dan Martin. Martin is a very good descender. He's a very good bike handler, which is quite strange because he's had a couple of nasty crashes in his career. I remember a nasty one at the start of the Tour of Italy when it was in Ireland. He crashed in the team time trial, then he crashed inside of the final 300 metres in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, when he was very, very close to getting himself another victory. But everything seems to be going right today because he looks like a man really on form.
Buckler is a very, very good descender, that's for sure, and he's prepared to lead the charge down here.
We're going to try and catch up to Dan Martin, who's taken off for about a 15 or 20 second advantage.
That's Michael in second place, there's Martin. I tell you what, I wonder if they're expecting an attack from Dan Martin down the Aspin. So he gets through Santa Maria de Campan and getting into the lead straight onto the lower slopes of the... He really is feeling pretty confident today.
Well, he is, but I wouldn't have made the move just yet because there's quite a long way, Phil, along this descent. Then you've got a little bit of a valley road along to the start of the Col de Tourmalet. Yes, I know he's in great form. He's proven that already by the way he rode across the gap, but I think the better part of Valor would be to wait for a moment for the breakaway group to have the strength of a 7-man group along the valley road, and then if he feels really good, to make his move on the Col de Tourmalet.
Meanwhile, the peloton hardly having a day off, but they're riding very nervously here, watching each other, battling out for that yellow jersey at the Tour. All of the projected favourites totally shocked by the way Chris Froome rode them all off his wheel yesterday. Now they're going to have to rethink their tactics. There's all sorts of rumours that they're all going to gang up on Chris Froome. Ganging up on one man is one thing, but ganging up on the team, Sky, is most certainly another, because this is a very strong team.
Andre Greipel, he's going to lose that green jersey competition at the end of today because he just missed out in the intermediate sprints when we went through the town of Lusac. In fact, Peter Sager was second at that sprint point. And back with this group, we're just a little bit further down the road. Well, it looks as if Dan Martin is actually just listening to me because I think he's decided to back off a fraction. He's in a comfortable situation with a 7.5-minute advantage over the main field, which contains all of the overall contenders. For the moment, they seem to be in recovery mode after what was a very, very difficult stage yesterday for everybody. Made more difficult by the fact that you had that two-man breakaway getting cleared early on with an advantage at one stage of close to 15 minutes. And what that forced all the teams who wanted to win the stage to do was to chase extremely hard. So then it was a question of really blowing the race apart once they started that final climb. Just slipping away. This is Talansky. I think he's just dropping back to the team car. Doesn't look like anybody in any stress at all. Quite happy with the fact that a bit of pressure taken off his shoulders at this point by the fact that he's got Dan Martin in the leading breakaway group.
So we saw Peter Sagan going back. I think his job now is to just get some bottles for the boys, because he's a great descender, and many teams do within the last kilometer before hilltop finish, they just go and get somebody to get bottles, deliver the bottles right at the top of the climb, so everybody has a fresh, cold water bottle for the descent. That's what most teams do, because everybody throws the bottles away on the uphill, and they just refill on water on the last kilometer of the climb.
Well, that may be what he's doing, Jens. I must say they need plenty of fluids today. It is very, very hot at the peloton. Coming up towards the summit, Dan Martin still on his own on the way down. The peloton, the 7:46, is just going to be tickling 8 minutes here. That might be a gap for the day that they will not bridge as they go over the finish, about 7:48. And it was Richie Port getting some points there in the King of the Mountains. Oh no, he's missed out. Only the first 6 top points today, so he was 8th. So, as the peloton go over, they're just keeping an eye on the whereabouts of the real stars of the Tour after yesterday's racing. Chris Froome, at the moment, enjoying his second day in the Pyrenees in the hot sunshine. Hasn't been challenged since we started today from pole, but can Dan Martin take the win?
Yeah, well, as you can see, it is extremely warm on the Tour de France today, 33, 34 degrees Celsius, and a lot of the teams had helpers at the top of that climb, and the riders, you can see them just moving over to the side, more concerned with taking on board liquid, cold liquid for the descent, than actually staying in contact with the main field. Back with the leading group now, which is reformed. There's Dan Martin. I think Martin obviously making a sensible decision there, Phil, to wait for the rest of this group. So as I've said, you've got the quick descent of the Col d'Espagne, the first 3 or 4 kilometres, and Arnaud Demar using his ability to catch back to the leading group on the descent. He's a good bike handler, a former French national champion, and he just got tailed off by a fraction over the top of the climb, and obviously took 1 or 2 risks in the first corners to catch back up.
Well, the peloton have now started their descent, stringing out, yes, but flying down there still at the moment. Gap 7:45. They're still not racing after those leaders. There's nobody in that breakaway who is going to worry the leaders overall. The best placed is Moravito. The best placed, sorry, Serge Powell. He's 32 minutes. Sorry, Dan Martin is the best placed, 21 minutes down. The computer decided not to put those in order today, so 21 minutes down for Dan Martin. He's recovering the best part of 8 minutes at the moment.
Well, again, it seems if you want to get the roads done in your department of France, the best thing to do is to invite the Tour de France into the area, because this looks like a nicely resurfaced road as well as we go through the small little town in the Confins region of La Ceuve.
To form this breakaway today. There was no question of one attack, gap gained, and off we go. They had to work. It took a long time, some 76 kilometres of racing before we finally got the group away. And Dan Martin saw came up by himself on the Col d'Espagne.
Just to notice that beautiful lake down there, the Ayol Lake, which is situated about 1,000 metres in altitude. It's a 10-hectare artificial lake surrounded by beautiful conifer forest.
I tell you what, Paul, we are very close now to the Pic du Midi, which is a terrific site here. Now, normally on a day like this, we see it shrouded in mist. What if our helicopters listening to me? Because today it must be visible for miles.
Well, it would be fantastic to see it. In fact, it was built as an observatory in the 19th century, and I still wonder how they managed to get all of the equipment right the way up to the top of that Pic du Midi, because it peaks out at just inside of 2,900 metres above sea level.
Very often the snow line's still with you, but let's hope we pick that one up, because on a day like this it'll be pretty special. The peloton just taking it easy. There's no racing being done here, nobody taking any risks on the twisting descent of the Col d'Aspin. Sensible cornering, beautiful racing conditions of course. And tomorrow we're in the Pyrenees, a third day, a third uphill finish as we race to the top of the Plateau de Bay.
Well, one rider who's actually just got in front of these riders as well is Warren Barguil. He really is doing a phenomenal ride. He's up and down in this group a little bit like a yo-yo. He gets dropped, he gets back into his rhythm. Rigoberto Urán, well, he's also now having a similar sort of a day. These riders, Phil, will all hope that they can stay within about a minute of this group, because on the technical descent of the Col de Tourmalet, this group of the yellow jersey of Chris Froome, I don't think will take too many risks on the descent. But anyone left by around about a minute towards the top of the climb can use the technical descent to get themselves back into contact.
Now, Mike has called for his team vehicle here. He's put his hand up as he runs towards the summit. As they're coming up towards the 1 kilometre to go. And they're pushing on past him. There's the team car come through. What do you want? Information, I would think, more than a drink.
Some of these. The first 10-15 seconds.
He's had a time check, he's worked out what's behind, he knows there's 14 riders probably left in that Maillot Jaune group, and they're just settling down because he's actually taken half a minute out of that group now.
Well, at one stage they got to 4.5 minutes behind him, and I think he's doing a pretty phenomenal job. He must be really, interestingly, investing in a stage victory this afternoon, because if he goes over the top with 5.5 minutes, I'm pretty sure that they won't see him before they get down to the finishing line. This is Matthias Frank, number 181, the leader of IAM Cycling, the Swiss team.
And Lawrence ten Dam alongside him doing another great Tour de France here. The man who's setting the pace on this select bunch of 14. No, Richie Paws, and if you span around, you see how many Sky riders are still here. The riders in the bunch have noticed this. The team is strong, and always riding near to Chris Froome in the white jersey is Nairo Quintana, just waiting to see if he can, when he can.
Well, Rafael Majka certainly doesn't look like he's struggling at all on the slopes of this climb. He's got a very nice rhythm going in. He's ticking out as if he's just out for a touristic ride through the Pyrenees here this afternoon. But it's having a very good effect. When you look at the names in that group behind him, being led by Richie Porte, Geraint Thomas, Chris Froome, Vincenzo Nibali, Nairo Quintana, he's actually stretched his advantage out by another good few seconds to 5 minutes and 34. He's not really dangerous either, Phil, in the overall standings. He's more than 51 minutes behind Chris Froome in the overall standings, but for him, it's a chance of giving his team a stage victory.
Richie Porte now told to keep the pace steady by a very much concentrating Chris Froome there, who's now riding alongside the other man who won the Tour in recent years, last year, Nibali. Contador here knows his teammate hopefully is going to win the stage and bring something to the team. Lawrence ten Dam just tacked on at the back here. And Barguil still wrestling with himself now. He's losing a little bit of contact just now.
But Phil, this guy we're looking at, he's 23 years of age. He's got a long future ahead of him, and he's got a lot to learn about the Tour de France.
The Polish flag for a Polish man. Massive crowd on the Col de Tourmalet. He's not far off getting the maximum points here. He started his quest to try and regain the King of the Mountains title he won last year. Always a nice sight for when you've been climbing for so long. The banner at the top of the high spot of the Tour de France at 6,940 feet. Rafael Majka is on the descent. It's a fast one before the climb to the finish.
Well, it certainly is, but it's very, very technical in the first part. You can see the flags in the background, the flag of Spain, great, really stretched out there, and the wind is picking up over the top of the climb, but it is a pretty technical descent. They've got around about 20 kilometers down into the valley, and that's not going to take them very much more than 20 minutes of descending after having gone uphill for close to a 1 hour of ascent. Richie Porte, he really has found his legs over the last 48 hours. He's doing a lot of pacemaking at the front there to look after his teammate. And you know, Geraint Thomas is well up in the overall standings. Geraint Thomas, I think, is amazingly sitting in 5th place overall. That's a man who could possibly think of a future victory in the Tour de France if he too was given a little bit of freedom.
Meanwhile, our French camera's concentrating on this young man here, beaten and battered from a nasty fall yesterday, still finished well yesterday, and now having to hang on. Warren Barguil, his whole family following him on the tour now, from grandma through his nieces, through mum and dad, and unfortunately he fell yesterday.
Yes, it was a nasty crash, and I have to say, Phil, for the length of time that he was on the ground, I was not convinced that he was going to get back up, and now it'll be interesting to see just the gap back to the group behind Rafael Majka to Dan Martin.
Second participation in the Tour de France for this man here. He won, became the first Polish rider to win the King of the Mountains. Now he's scored 25 points going over the top of the Col de Tourmalet. Won the Tour of Poland last year, big win for a Polishman. A very tough race, the Tour of Poland, by the way. And now he's going to show us how he descends. He and Peter Sagan saved it for Tinkoff Saxo last year because of the early exit of Alberto Contador. Now he's going to try and do it again. And today, of course, we're going to see Sagan pull back on the green jersey. So the same duo, maybe trying to save it for them again. 5:40 the gap at 1 kilometre to go.
Well, just going over the top of the climb, Phil, 4th over the summit was Dan Martin, but more than 2 minutes behind Rafael Majka. Second over the top was Serge Pauwels at 1 minute 48 seconds, but there's a lot of big names in this group behind it. I have to say, Alejandro Valverde is riding up and down that group as if he's a policeman looking after his own teammate there, and the teammate. You know, I think Quintana won't do too much of a move today because tomorrow's stage really is quite horrific when you look at the profile, the Porte de Valais and then down towards the Plateau de Bègue.
Dan Martin's moved up into the top 6 now in the King of the Mountains, but that wasn't quite what he was planning, I don't think. It was this counter move by Rafael Majka. 1 kilometre to go for Warren Barguil. He's behind that group, remember now.
But he's not looking to very much more than 40 or 45 seconds, and because of this young rider's ability on the descents, I could see him actually catching them back up before the start of the final climb of the day. Barguil, would love to be a member of this group. He had a very nasty crash yesterday. Vincenzo Nibali, his face not showing any emotion at all here as he tries to ride himself back into the Tour de France. There's Alejandro Valverde moving up. There's Richie Porte. Richie Porte keeps ticking away there. He wants to grab himself a few points. He's obviously very, very keen to try and get himself points in the King of the Mountains competition. The acceleration there has put Andrew Chalansky into difficulty again. Number 137 is Lawrence Tendam. Sammy Sanchez as well, but they're not losing that much as they start to get over the top of this climb. The yellow jersey group, they're picking up a little bit of a tailwind coming around the corner. I think there's too many points have gone away for Richie Porte, but he'll continue.
Here we have then Richie Porte here wearing the King of the Mountains jersey as he comes up towards the top, but it's Chris Froome in the lead and the race well split up. Majka has got the win over the top, and Martin is leading the second chase now, but gone over in 4th place. Chris Froome is leading the next group on the road, and Quintana is in there as well. So too Van Garderen, Contador, Nibali. So the boys that matter for the overall in Paris are all locked together here. all under the escort of Geraint Thomas.
Geraint Thomas, 5th overall in the standings. This is a little bit of damage being done at the back, but I just noticed Michael Rogers, Phil, he was in difficulty early on. He's recovered and he's getting back into this leading group with Alberto Contador. You can see Contador there on the right-hand side, that bobbing style of his up alongside Nairo Quintana. But the man who really lit the blue touchway paper in the fireworks on the morning after the Bastille Day of France was Vincenzo Nibali and his team Astana.
Yes, it's nice to see Vincenzo recover from what he termed was out of puff on the climbs yesterday, and he's now looking though he may be a little bit stronger once more. Still lots of riders in all sorts of trouble here.
Well, Froome leads him over there, Phil, a little bit historic, by the way. The 80th inclusion of the Col de Tourmalet in the Tour de France, first introduced back in 1910. And of course, you know, it was Octave Lapisse was the first man to go over the top on that occasion.
Yes, sadly a victim of the World War. Now, the barren descent at the top of the Tourmalet, you've got to keep your concentration. Braking very hard for that right hand through on the adverse camera inside corner there. This is Richie Porte.
Well, once we get confirmation, I think Richie Porte might have picked up a couple of points there over the top of the climb, and that's what he would be looking for, because I think in the back of his mind now, Phil, Richie Porte is thinking, you know, I quite like this polka dot jersey.
Yes, it's on loan from Chris Froome just at the moment.
Now, the way it looked to me, Geraint Thomas pulled over and let Chris Froome pass. So Chris Froome picked up the most possible points in that chase group. So I must say, in my Tour de France history, I have never seen a yellow jersey actually paying attention to any other jerseys. Normally, they just go yellow and nothing else. And here we see Rafael Majka in a quite unusual but fast position.
Yeah, well, Chris has got 6 points on the climb there, and Richie Porte didn't get any. So it looks as though he might be going for the double this year. We'll see. Look at the, oh dear me, when the cameras give us a slow motion, that's a tight one.
Well, Rafael Majka, Phil, at the front of the race, he's got a very good advantage over everybody else, a good 5.5 minute lead, but he certainly needs to take a few risks. Well, we're a little bit further down the race here because at 31 kilometres to go, this is the young Frenchman, 23 years of age, Warren Barguil. He was involved in a very nasty crash yesterday. He's trying to catch back up to the yellow jersey group, which contains pretty much all of the pre-race favourites, including Chris Froome, who started the day in yellow, Richie Porte, and of course in there as well, Chris Froome, Vincenzo Nibali. Off the front of the main field, still by the 5.5 minutes advantage. You can hear the squeals coming in there from the motorbikes, trying to keep up here with Warren Barguil. The leading rider, Rafael Majka, is still 5.5 minutes ahead, with a number of riders stuck in the middle. So this is Majka getting down into a little precarious ski-like tuck position. That's to make himself as aerodynamic as possible to try and approach those speeds of around about 90 kilometers an hour in the straights. And once he feels that he's starting to slow down a back fraction, he gets back into the saddle, gets the pace back up nice and high again. He's going to be a very difficult man to catch, because on the descent like this, he will be doing the same speed or maybe even a little bit faster. There you go, there's confirmation that he's touching just 80 kilometers an hour going down here. They won't, over the next 10 kilometers or so, have very much chance at all to pull back to him. So I think he's taken a pretty serious option on the stage victory today.
He's taking a lot of risk. He's absolutely screaming here through Barège. Long, straight, high-speed drop. Everybody right to stand back.
Well, in fact, he's also, we're not getting the proper time check, but he's got himself a very good advantage over the second group on the road, which contains Dan Martin, Serge Pauwels and the rest. And they are still hovering at around about 2 minutes behind the lone leader. Now the race descent is not quite as technical as it was over the first 4 or 5 kilometers.
That's a super road. There is a nasty curly coming up to, in fact, but even so, this is a super descent here. But just time to slam on the brakes for this one.
these corners, you've got to line yourself up quite properly. Nice to see Bauke Mollema here from Trek Factory Racing. He's stayed in contact. Oh, well, he's using the road. Wow. I suppose that brings a complete idea of just how much of the road you have to use around these descents. You get over to the opposite side and cut right across the in.
Concentration all the way. This is DeMar coming back to the peloton.
Oh, there's a cow. Just in the road. I don't know if you saw that.
Boy,
that's what race radio was crackling about there. There was a cow coming across the road.
Oh boy, this is not the sort of hazard you want on the descent of the Tour de France at all.
Wow, and that is one of the white cows of the Bernays. And talk about poor old Warren Barguil. I don't know how he got through there, Phil, but that was almost a hamburger.
Well, I tell you, you know, all the tours I've seen, I don't think I've ever seen that before. Well, it's been averted, and that's all that matters here as they continue on the way down. The breakaway now being picked up by the peloton, but the one man out front is still holding a very, very good lead.
Oh, well, a bit of excitement there with the cows of the Tour de France getting involved in the mix, looking down there at this select group. Chance here to have a quick look at the riders in the group now. Alejandro Valverde down there. Back at the front, Rafael Majka has lost hardly any of his advantage over the yellow jersey group. Dropping down now, he's made his way through Barège for the lone leader. His advantage now is 2 minutes over a group, and we're still hearing there are 6 riders together: Morabito, Vogler, Martin, Simon, Bookman and Powell, and they had around about 2 minutes, and then it's 5 minutes and 10 seconds is the gap to the group containing Nibali, Kangat, Froome, Port and Thomas. And this is that group, Richie Porte. Well, it's in fact being corrected by race radio, 5 minutes and 40 seconds. I think we're now here with Warren Barguil. Look at the risks he's taking going around these corners. He's a very, very good descender. I've seen him win a couple of stages in the Tour of Spain when he was just 21 years of age. He knows that around these corners, this is the point where he's got to try and get himself back into that leading group, or the leading group of contenders, if he can. He can go around those maybe a couple of seconds faster than everybody else. He's now got about 35 seconds to make up. Now, in this part of it, we're looking at the way, or looking at the attitude of that group of riders. They're not chasing hard, they're in fact slowing down a fraction now. This little bit of a pause might just be the moment when the young Frenchman Warren Barguil can get himself back into contact. Little chat there between Port and Chris Froome. It's too much time now back to try and make up to the leading lone rider, I think, Rafael Majka, but they may well be able to catch the riders who are caught halfway across the gap, although they've still got 3 minutes to make up. 25 kilometers to go. The lone leader now is still Rafael Majka, the Polish rider who last year won 2 stages of the Tour de France, one of them not too far away from here, the Pla d'Adet, and now looking as if he's got himself sails set high for a victory on today's stage. It's quite a long drag up towards the finish line. In fact, the King of the Mountains point at the Côte de Courtrai is around about 2.5 kilometers from the finishing line, which is right in the heart of Courtrai. Some really nasty floods in Barège back in 2013, and the French government had to pay an awful lot of money to strengthen up the banks of the river to make it safer for the future. But this man, he really is the great revelation of last year, and look at this position he's got himself into to push himself down at speeds of 72. He's been as high as 80 kilometers an hour going downhill.
Well, his season hasn't been good at all in the build-up for the Tour, and it wasn't good in the first few days of the Tour, but it's certainly good today. He saw the break, he went with it, he had his plan as he races into Barège with the peloton, as we do at the moment. And it looks as though, as they're not gaining any time at all on him, Paul, we're inside 25 to go. I think he's every chance now to win this stage.
Well,
now, is this Barguil coming back?
This is the kind of risks when you're 23 years of age and you're in the top 10 in the overall standing of the Tour de France that you are prepared to take. And he's going through here, Phil, at 50 miles an hour. He's leapfrogging from one car to the next as he makes his way up to the peloton. I take my hat off to this young man, because when I saw him at the side of the road yesterday, I thought, well, I thought his Tour de France was over.
Well, you said he could get back on the descent, and he has got back almost, as it runs down for quite a little way yet before we start the finishing climb up to Courtrai. And it's not a hard climb, it's not a major mountain, it's only third category. Oh boy, this is going to be a tight one, but he's made it on the outside of that motorbike.
I suppose you could say, oh, to be 23 years of age again, because he's showing no signs of fear at all, especially for a man who's had a couple of nasty crashes over the last couple of seasons. But when he won 2 stages in the Vuelta a España a couple of years ago, he was only 21 years of age, and now we're back with Micah. And in fact, that group behind Phil are starting to eat into his advantage, because Serge Powell's race radio has just said is only 1 minute and 10 seconds behind him.
Well, Micah will know exactly where the chasers are now, because his team car will have been telling him that. He's looking for 20 kilometres to go very shortly. As I said, he comes over this little climb. It's called the Côte de Courtrai, which means a small hill. And once over the top, he's got 3.5 kilometres into the town itself for the finish. And so he'll continue to run down towards Rue Saint-Sauveur.
And he's just gone through Luz Saint-Sauveur, and he's about to move away from Luz Saint-Sauveur and start to line up towards Laris and Pierrefitte Nestaras, and that's where he's going to start the little ascent. It's more, as we get around there, that's Barguil. It's Andrew Talansky taking on board a last chance of some liquid refreshment before the final climb of the day, and gives you an idea there of the kind of speed that we are attaining going down these hills. Close to 80 kilometres an hour. Lawrence Tendam. Warren Barguil, hats off to Warren Barguil, because he's made the junction with all of the other contenders. But again, he's going to have to line up for a very difficult day tomorrow as well.
So, well, tell us all about the Castle of Santa Maria, Paul.
Well,
do you know anything about it?
It goes back to the 12th century. In fact, the little church down there, by the way, is a beautiful Romanesque style. But for the main field today, it's a question of whether or not Serge Powell, the Belgian, can get himself back up to the leading rider, because we've seen a brilliant descent done by Raphael Micah, but Serge Powell is hanging on to a 1-minute deficit.
And that's the yellow jersey group. It has swollen with just 1 or 2 riders getting back after the descent of the Col de Tourmalet. This rider is still out front. Serge Powell's being shown at 1 minute 14. We haven't got a camera with him, unfortunately. 2 minutes back to Dan Martin and Emmanuel Buchmann, and then it's a little bit further. We don't know how far back to Buchler and Simon with the peloton at 5:44. Here's Serge Powell.
Well, he really must be inspired, and as I've said, Phil, I can only find a single stage victory for this man over the years, and that was a stage of the Giro d'Italia. But what a victory that would be if he could catch the lone leader. And as we saw yesterday, Phil, that this race finishes with a climb, and he's climbing well.
He's climbing very well. He hasn't won a race, by the way, since 2009. And that was the only race he ever won. But what a race to win. Stage 15 of the Tour of Italy, the Giro d'Italia. Now, he's going to keep on digging in here. It would be an incredible result for MTN Quebec, the new team from Africa in the Tour de France.
You can see Dan Martin as we get onto the slopes of this climb. Well, he's left Emmanuel Buchmann behind.
Yes, Buchmann is a real star of the future. That young man riding his first Tour and the only new professional in the Tour de France, and in at the kill on the stage in the Pyrenees. But now he's going to hang on and see if he can get 4th across the line, because Dan Martin is off again on his favourite terrain.
Well, Dan Martin used the slopes of the Col d'Aspin to ride across a 3-minute gap to get himself into the lead group on the Môme at the time. Now he's going to hope that this final climb of the day, a 5-kilometer climb up to the Côte de Cotteret, will allow him to ride across the gap, first of all, to Serge Pauwels. As we pull back here, we get a chance to see how much of a job he's doing, because he was initially a minute behind Serge Pauwels and 2 minutes behind Raphael Maika.
And there he is. It's a bit of a tall order. He could certainly reach Pauwels, but I don't think he'll reach the leader now, not with 7 kilometres left to ride. This is Richie Porte, just guiding the heads of state through the valley and taking them towards the finishing line all together. And that's a day that they can tick off with a yellow jersey still on the shoulders of Chris Froome. Richie Porte, he's done another great job for the yellow jersey as he's got to the front and controlled everything as we go into these protections for the road for when the weather conditions are bad. As we now see down below us here, the Tour de France going home to Cotteret.
Dan Martin's done a great performance throughout the whole of today. You can see him coming across the gap. It's down to about 10 or 12 seconds. Just before he gets to the top of the climb, and look at the difference in the speed. Phil, looking down on the computer here, they're showing us that it's 22 kilometres an hour for Pauwels, 26 kilometres an hour for Dan Martin. Martin is doing a phenomenal job, but I think he's just left it once again a little bit too late to get himself up for the victory.
But for the second time this day, he's crossing a huge gap to get back up to the sharp end of the race. And as we come up towards the summit, it gets a little bit steep just as we go under the Banner Bridge, and it's only worth 2 points in the King of the Mountains. And Raphael Maika now, as the crowd cheer him up deep into the valley, and he concentrates, chops off the corners. Now, just at 1 kilometre to go is Serge Pauwels, and I reckon about 10 or 15 seconds at most behind him is Dan Martin. Now, that's a little bit at the end, and they still give it only third category, but it gets very steep just before we get under the banner here.
Well, just having a quick look down from the high spot here, you can see how difficult it is, that final few climbs. They call this Les Lacets de Cotteret, or the zigzags of Cotteret.
And look at this, the catcher's coming. Is he going to jump him straight away? I think he is. He's not going to allow him time to recover. And Dan Martin has gone straight by Serge Pauwels with an incredible sprint.
Well, I have to say, Serge Pauwels was caught in no man's land for an awful long time, and he's got no more power to send down to the engine room this afternoon, and he is now very much in survival mode. But for Dan Martin, he would really like to try and catch back with the overall lead. I don't think he's going to do that, because a quick look at the clock says he's still looking to try and bridge a 2-minute gap to the leader, Raphael Maika.
Well, he's got that bobbing style down there, Martin, once he gets his engines running here. And again, there's a point for second place up this mountain, so he continues to get some points in the King of the Mountains. He'll be in the top 5 or 6 tonight. This ride, though, I think might be out of his reach. This is the top of the climb. He gets 2 points for the King of Mountains, and now he gets the pleasure of a quick run down into the finish.
And exactly that's what it is, because once he goes over the crest of this little Côte de Cotteret, it is a fast run down towards the finish. It's not steep at all anymore. It's slightly downhill to begin with over the top of this climb, and then he charges into the middle of town, and he won't have to worry too much about that 90-degree bend right after the finishing line.
Under 3 kilometres now. It's the long straight road to the beautiful town of Cotteret. It's only the 4th time we've come here. Miguel Indurain won a stage of the race in Cotteret before he started winning the Tour de France for 5 years in a row, when he never won a road race stage again during his reign as a Tour winner, but he certainly won the road race stage here on that occasion.
Well, Dan Martin is dreaming of pulling back a 1.5-minute gap, but, you know, Phil, at 2.6 kilometres to go, that's a very tall ask of anybody. If it was the top of a 2.5-kilometre ascent towards the finish, he might be in with a slight chance of doing that today. But the fact is that Raphael Maika has gone over the crest of this hill, and he's got a very fast approach to the finish line now.
continued to keep the group maillot jaune well away at 6:53. Micah is looking for the team's first stage win this year of the Tour de France. He had 2 in the mountains last year and won the King of the Mountains title. He started progressing in that competition too today. Now his rider has had a brilliant day out. He may have to be content with his second place of this year's Tour de France. He was second on the Mer de Huy, but what a great ride Dan Martin has done. Now 1 kilometre to go for Rafael Micah as he heads under that banner. There's a bit of an attack here. This is Bauke Mollema, who's gone from the chase group at the moment for the Trek Factory team as he moves clear. Well, that's a cheeky move, but it's worth a few seconds, possibly.
Well, it's always worth having a little crack down towards the end like this. Bauke Mollema is in 11th place overall. It's quite surprising to see one Dutchman chasing another Dutchman.
Now, Richie Port dropping off. He's done his job all day. That's to be expected. Thomas Vogler, is that? No. That's Radu who's gone off there.
Well, you know, Richie Port, job done for the day, and Lawrence Dam slipping away. You know, this is the final little kicker. Michael Rogers has done his job as well. But the big names, they'll be keeping a very close eye on each other. Checking on this, this in fact is Sammy Sanchez, Andrew Talansky slipping away, and Nibali.
Oh, Nibali's in trouble here. He's got to get up the slopes just ahead of him, or his days that have been wasted is going to cost him time, and it's all by the attack of Bauke Mollema. Last year's winner caught out again. Sanchez has gone back round him.
Well, that is so very, very strange, the way the body of Vincenzo Nibali is reacting here, slipping away there. One of his teammates who did a lot of pacemaking early on, Tanel Kangat. Sammy Sanchez almost recovered a fraction here, and you've just got to be so attentive. Amazing to think that it was Vincenzo Nibali did most of the pacemaking on the Col de Tourmalet, and now all of a sudden on this little climb down towards the end, he's paid for all of those efforts.
Well, they gave it 3rd category. I think that was a bit mean, quite honestly, because these curlies taking much to line are very steep indeed, and that's been proven now. They've cracked last year's winner of the Tour de France within 3.5 kilometres of the line. But let's go to the line now, because here's the man who's had a most brilliant day in the breakaway, which established around 76 kilometres in. So 110 kilometres up front for this rider today, a lot of it by himself. And he's going to give us, I hope, a 2-arm salute. He's going to give us a smile anyway, because he's put Tinkoff Saxo on the map today. It'll be his 3rd stage career win. Just wisely checking over, make sure that nobody's creeping up. And remember, we've got the 2 nasty little flickers coming into the finishing line. It won't cause him any problems. Now he sees the line. Yes, reminds us of his sponsor, and there's the shot left as you cross the line. And he's got the stage win. Rafael Micah wins here in Cotteret. Now, is Dan Martin hung on for 2nd?
Well, no problem at all with Dan Martin for 2nd place. Serge Pauls should be very comfortable, but what a great mover. You can see he tried everything here this afternoon.
Well, the clock's counting it down. A fantastic day out for the Irishman. One of the best rides of his life. He crossed the gap at 3.5 minutes to catch the breakaway. Only one man at the end of the day beat him to the draw. And as the clock ticks on, Daniel Martin gets his second place of this year's Tour de France. He matches the Mur de Bretagne with the giant climbs of the Pyrenees. It'll be just on a minute as he comes up to the finishing line.
But this man raced today's stage. He'll be able to talk about it as he comes up to get his second place of the Tour.
About 59 seconds for Martin on the line. Now, this rider has caused a little bit of dismay back in that group, which was nice and cosy. We switched here now to Bachman, Manuel Buchmann. What a great ride by this kid. He really is a kid. The only new professional in the race, and he's on a mountain day. He's crossed the line, I presume, in 3rd place. I don't know where Serge Pauls gone.
Well, Serge Pauls was in 3rd place on the road, but anyway, we'll check out on that. But Bauke Mollema is looking to try and break into the top 10 in the overall standings. He started the day in 11th place overall. We've seen Vincenzo Nibali in difficulty. He may well be slotting into the top 10 overall. There's Serge. Wow, he cracked a little bit down towards the end. He's going to finish it with 4th place on today's stage.
Yes, Buckman got by him on the top of that climb, which really did hurt Serge, and from looking like a second place finisher, he's going to come over the line. Nonetheless, in a great result today for Serge Powell in 4th place. And a great result for MTN Quebec. Well taken attack. And this is still Bauke Mollema here, who's actually caused, it seems, Nibali to lose time on the run-in today, more time.
Yes, but you've got to admit, Phil, he was a big racer, and again, back on the defensive, Chris Froome and Nibali lost some serious time once again, but he's raced, he went out there and tried to do the damage, he did the damage, but down towards the end, he just had a little bit missing from his firepower of 12 months ago.
Being escorted by the only surviving teammate with him there, Kangart. This is Bauke Mollema coming over, still remains a top rider in the Tour de France, a few seconds will help him today. Group with all his main rivals around him, they'll keep the same time losses, and in fact it'll be more time losses for Nibali.
Well, Thomas Voeckler has survived a long day in the saddle for him, a stage that smiled on him in the past. It hasn't smiled on him here this afternoon, but once again he's proved that he can endear himself to the French crowds, as he's got Julien Simon who says, "Oh no, you crossed the line in front of us."
And I think Julien said, "No, you can have it, or is he going to take him?" He's trying to see what he's saying here. He pulls the best faces in the world, the best gurneys in the world, as he comes up towards the line here, Tommy Voeckler. I think it's 5th place for him now, and 6th for Simon. Good ride for Simon too.
Yeah, very impressive ride for those two riders to survive from that early morning breakaway. And Tony Galopin's now making a little move there in the red jersey of Lotto.
Well, a few seconds gain. He's got a lovely place overall at the moment. He could snick a few seconds.
Well, he's only 1 second behind